Mark, how's it going?
Yes, sir. We are in July.
This way. This way.
That clock, right, you know?
That clock is 3 minutes. I have 6:50.
Speech from Biden.
All right, you got something.
Not quite yet.
We're ready to go.
Yeah, we're ready to go whenever it turns over.
Sit here. No way.
It's just me. I've got
You need the spread.
all the computers.
Okay. Call Mayville Common Council to order on Monday, July 8th at 7 PM. Please take the roll.
Alderman DeBaker.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Liebnow.
Here.
Alderman Newman.
Here.
Alderperson Olson. Here. Quorum is present.
All right, please stand for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, is there any citizen comments tonight? State your name for record.
Good evening, Clark Fox, 913 Green Bay Drive. Before I start, I'd like to just say that I'm sort of getting this sort of second, maybe third-handed, but the sources I got it from were two individuals and remain sort of consistent. I noticed today that on the meeting, we'll be talking about these civil defense or tornado sirens, talk about repairing or replacing them. I just want to say that a few weeks ago, it was the first thing I heard my wife and I did when the storm came through. We had the warnings out. We immediately went to the basement, took cover. That was before anybody else had it out. We heard the siren first. Now, I understand that a meeting a while back, there was a proposal made, a very nice proposal was made about how to replace or repair these sirens at a very reasonable cost. I understand that it was then passed unanimously by the group who was involved at this meeting. I recently heard, though, that there may be a veto coming out against this change, and the chance of an override might not happen. I just want to say that whatever going on, I think these sirens are necessary in our city. Yeah, maybe somebody doesn't like them going off at 12:30 at noon on a Saturday, but I will say this, for me, they work, and I live way out at the end of town, and I still heard the one that, wherever is around here by the golf course, I guess I still heard it. I would like to see the sirens remain. I think it's a great system of alerting people what's going on. Yes, we had these, yes, we got the robocall, but the robocall was after the sirens, and these didn't beep until after the sirens. So if there's a cost-effective way of doing it, I hope that's what you're going to do. I understand the proposal that had been made was very cost-effective, and I hope you all consider that if this is what's coming up in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Item number 5, consent agenda, or actually number 4, excuse me, agenda changes. So I'd like to suspend the rules and bring up number 9B up to the front so Baker Tilly can give a presentation on the audit. Is there a motion to suspend the rule?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Smith,
Second.
second by DeBaker. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, John, you're up.
All right, stand up here at the podium.
Yep.
Okay. Needs to be on that side.
All right.
Well, thanks for having us here tonight. I'm familiar face to most of you, John Rader. I also have Aaron Gelvin with me, and Aaron's been in charge of the audit for, I believe, 3 years now. He was at this meeting last year. So we're going to share most of this. Most of the time, I'm going to spend going through the financial highlights. You don't have this purple text, but you've got these, I think, in your packet. About 4 or 5 pages of kind of hitting on some high points of where the city landed at the end of the year financially. Before I touch on those, though, I just want to mention a couple things. If you have questions, please do ask us. That's one of the main reasons we're here, is to address those questions you might have. We did issue finals a few weeks ago on June 18th. That's pretty darn close to when we issued last year. But we did delay the start of the audit this year because of some turnover and just making sure things were ready. And so even though we're released at about the same time, like I said, so it was a quick turnaround, and a large part of that was because the city brought in the consultants that really helped keep things going and moving along for us when we actually started the audit, which also reduces the audit costs as well. So I'm glad we can be here at the July meeting once again. The other thing I want to mention is we issued, it might not sound like that big of a deal, but it's one of the main reasons you hire an external CPA firm is to issue an audit opinion in your financial statements. It's 3 pages, a lot of boilerplate language, but it is important. It's important to the state, to your granting agencies, to the banks, your bondholders. And so that clean opinion basically means that your financial statements are prepared according to all the county rules, GAAP, right? They're materially correct, include all the disclosures that are in there, like they're supposed to be. And with the turnover at the city over the last couple of years, it's been a little challenging to get all that together, but you maintain that clean opinion, and that's what you want to keep going, which is great. All right, so I'm going to talk about the highlights. I'm going to talk about the first couple of pages and then turn over to Aaron to talk about the debt a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap it up by talking about the other document that we issue, other reporting and insight. So on page 1 of these highlights, it's a bar graph, and you should be able to see some light blue lines, which represent 2023 general fund balance at the end of the year, and then the black are the previous or 2022 amounts. And so on this page 1, it's laid out like this, and these fund balance categories, you can have up to 5 different categories in fund balance reporting for governmental funds, and the city has 3 of them, okay? Non-spendable, assigned, and unassigned. And think of those as buckets of money, equivalent to cash, but not exactly cash, because you got accruals running through there too. But the general fund, your primary operating fund, had at the end of the year. And I'm going to start at the bottom. So non-spendable, you can see is $1,117,000. So it's up quite a bit from the previous year, $577,000. That non-spendable is comprised of 2 very small amounts for prepaid amounts that you paid them before the end of the fiscal year, but it's really for 2024. And some delinquent personal property taxes, which are like a long-term receivable, so it's really not available. But most of it, $1,093,000 of it, is made up of amounts that has been advanced, as we say, or loaned to other funds of the city, okay? Other funds of the city, and I'll come back to this in a minute, have deficit cash. And GAAP says you can't present a fund that's in the hole. You have to borrow from another fund. And so it comes out of the general fund. So that amount, that's why that went up so much this year. Last year was $566,000. It's in a sense double over last year. So while your general fund as a whole didn't change a lot, it did go down $283,000, but other funds did go more negative, and so it had to draw from the general fund. The funds that are now negative are detailed out in your financial statements on page 41, but it includes all 3-year TIP funds, your customer loan fund, recycling, the rec fund, the capital project fund, $242,000 deficit, and the tag of $443,000. $200,000. So about 76% of your fund balance is being tied up because of the other funds deficits. Okay, so it's something you want to address, as you go forward. It's not going to happen overnight. And, we can talk about that more if you have questions later on. Moving our way up this bar graph, nothing in restricted, which are external restrictions, nothing in committed. You do have some amounts in the assigned that did not change the previous year. And those are amounts that are made up of FEMA funds that have been set aside, as I understand it, as a matching for the dam, and employee separation funds of about $70,000, which is a good funding mechanism in times of people leaving the city, and some fire department dues, the 2% dues that come in that have been set aside. So again, not a big portion of your fund balance, and it did not change from the previous year. Everything else is in that unassigned category, and that's the category we have a lot of flexibility with. But it did go down, as you can see, from 1.1 down to the 647,000. So it went down $824,000. Overall, you can see that in the middle, that summarized income statement, about 2/3 of the way down, I should say, you had a loss, like I said earlier, of $283,000 in the general fund. Got there because the revenues actually came in over budget. And that was driven by ambulance fees being higher than what you budgeted and investment income. That was the primary driver. And we've seen that everywhere. Rates were really in the tank for the last couple of years. In 2023, they've rebounded, especially the amounts of the state investment pool.
What was the other one? Ambulance fees?
Ambulance fees are the one that was over. There's some that are over, some that are under. The ambulance fees really stood out as being over budget, and investment income, those two categories. So revenues, again, were over, but expenses were over as well by $320,000. And the details of all this are in the back of your financial statements on pages 60 to 63. The financial administration was over, a large part of the turnover and such. Police was over, and ambulance was over as well. So ambulance was over both on the revenue side and on the expense side. They kind of run hand in hand. Okay. But again, some departments over, some are under. That's laid out in the back of the financial statements. So what does all that mean? If you take a look at the next page, a common metric that we point out is if you take your unassigned general fund balance and you compare it to your expenditures, that gives you a ratio. And you also have a policy that takes a similar approach, and that's spelled out at the very top here, to try and maintain reserves at 25% of your subsequent year's budget expenditures. I will point out that that policy is out of, I believe, a resolution that was passed back in 2009 for the fiscal recovery plan of the city. Okay, around way back then, and I do remember that, and I looked at it in our file this morning. But that's where that policy comes out of. That's a really common policy, or something very similar to it. So I think that it's a solid policy. And that as you look at how it's laid out here in the graph, that policy amount is that black line right along the 25%. So you've been above it every single year for the last 4 years, that red line, until this year. You dropped to 13.6. Okay, and it dropped because, going back to what I started talking about, those other funds, capital, TAG, others, being negative, having to pull from the general fund. Okay. If you're curious, and it doesn't carry a lot of weight, but other places that we audit of similar size based on population are those blue dots. So around 38, 40%, somewhere in there, which is about where you've been until this year. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pause. Any question on those fund balance amounts? Now I'll turn over to Aaron to talk about that.
Would it be fair to say that this is a carryover with showing last year actually, so that the public knows this?
Well, fund balance gets, it's not so you've got the balance sheet, which is a snapshot in time, but the fund balance amounts, are really cumulative over time. So it started to decline even in 2022, as you can see, but you would have to look at the history of those other funds to see really, yeah. But a large part of the driver is in the last year.
Anybody else? I just want to say that to the public, anyone watching, that tomorrow we'll have this on our website, so anybody who wants to look at it, you can go to the website and look at it.
You go to the next page. This next page is kind of just like an overview of all the general obligation debt at the city. You'll see kind of this chart down here at the bottom. The black line is the debt limit the city has, is kind of the maximum amount of debt the city could have. And the red line is what is currently outstanding. You'll see that 2023 amount is at 4.3 million. That's down from last year, down about 400,000. That's just kind of due to scheduled principal payments, just those scheduled payments out of that. There's no debt issues in 2023. So that's why I went down. You'll see at the top then that actual percentage of debt limit is 16%. That's just taking that 4.3 million divided by the 26 million. That's also down from last year. Last year was 20%. So, it's definitely a good amount. You're well under that debt limit, and it just went down from last year due to those scheduled payments. You'll see the chart down there at the bottom. You'll see that $4.3 million amount again under the general obligation. That's just kind of showing where that 4.3 comes from. Part of it's from the city, part of it's from the utility, but that's just that GO debt outstanding. You'll also see two columns. One is for revenue debt, one is for compensated absences. Those don't go as a part of your debt limit. Those aren't a part of that sort of percentage. They're just there as a reference. The revenue debt is 3.2 million. Last year was 2.5 million. That's just increased due to additional draws on the Clean Water Fund and Safe Drinking Water loans. That's where that increase came from. And then compensated absences, super comparable to last year. That was 280,000. So that's how that stood from last year. If you go to the next page, then this is kind of continuing on with, the debt service results. This chart is showing debt service expenditures as a percent of non-capital expenditures, or in other words, this is showing what percentage the city is spending on debt versus the operational expenses. So same thing, if you kind of look at the chart there, that red line is where the city of Mayville is at. You can see it's decreased each year, and even this past year went from 11.9% to 7.5%. Our general recommendation is usually to remain around 20% or less, which the city has done for the last 4 years. That just shows that the city is able to kind of pay their financial obligations, and it's not heavily relying on debt or anything like that. It's part of the liabilities. If you kind of look down here at the bottom, then this is summarizing, that data that's going up into the chart. You'll see the principal and interest total. It went down. That's due to the 2019 promissory notes. Those were fully paid off last year, so no payments needed on that. So that's where that decrease comes from. Then the non-capital expenditures, super comparable to last year, is just under a 10% change. But that's where that decrease then is coming from. Any questions on the debt section before we kind of move to the audit results? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so the last thing we want to touch on is, like Aaron said, the audit results. It's this document called the Reporting and Insights. There's a lot of stuff in here, things about touch on, what are our responsibilities as your auditors. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding of that. We're really GAAP auditors. Like I said at the very beginning, the primary objective is to issue that opinion on your financial statements. That's all GAAP related. Related to that, what are the areas we focus on? Kind of the areas you would expect: taxes, payables, payroll, and things like that. Any risks that we have to factor into it. It also talks about new GASBs, or the accounting rules. Which ones did you implement this year? What are the ones that are coming around the back? There's a couple that are effective for next year. One that could have an impact regarding compensated absences, but we'll evaluate that along with city staff. And then there's 3 or 4 pages of required communications in there that talk about a variety of things that, there's no real concerns in that area for the city. But the area that probably draws the most attention or questions are the internal control matters. And so I do want to touch on a couple things. I'm not going to go in depth on this, but the internal control matters start on page 6 of this report. And many of these points are carried forward from the previous year. Again, because of the changes in the city and the personnel, not a lot, a lot of the things that we have been recommending in the past just did not get addressed. They were not high priority. So there's a comment on page 6 about segregation of duties. This is not uncommon of a city of this size, but this is kind of a general comment. It's something that it's up to your auditors, we just have to point it out. But then there's some more specific things below that, key or missing key controls. And so we try to drill down a little bit to give some more specific recommendations. And we've listed those out. Again, they have not changed for the last couple of years. The two that I think are probably the most critical, if you were to ask me to kind of show these or think about these in hierarchy, are the first two. And that's adjusting journal entries being independently reviewed, as well as the monthly bank reconciliations. To have somebody else, another set of eyes, not redo it, but just, making sure that they make sense and verifying a few things and having that oversight. And we will definitely be looking at this again next year, but my understanding is these are being done. And so these are pretty easily accomplished and add a lot of value to the internal controls of the city. So again, we will take a look at that. And a couple others that I won't touch on. Page 7 is getting at the library building activity. A lot of that activity, well, all that activity was decentralized from the city's primary system of collections and disbursements. And each of the last 2 years had to be basically journal entered in through the audit process. And this year working with their consultants to bring that activity in. And you really want to keep that level of activity. We're talking $8 million of this last year flowing through your centralized system. It's okay the way they set it up, but the missing step, bringing it into your centralized system of controls and payments and such, really should be done. Now, with that being said, it's been completed, and I would expect that comment to go away next year too. And then the comment on the bottom of page 7 is in almost every one of our reports, the fact that we do prepare your financial statements, and we did have some journal entries this year. It's just, that's a high bar for governments to achieve. And so again, this is in almost all of our reports. It has been for many years for the city of Lakeville. Page 8 starts some other comments. Again, most of these are carried forward from the previous year. We do have a few new ones in here. On the top of page 8, it gives it the city's financial position. That's exactly like I just started talking about the general fund, other funds becoming dependent upon it. It's not really an internal control issue. It's just a comment to consider. You heard about our highlights, but this is the point where it pulls it out in our audit. Below that, the CDA actually has a levy for it for the last couple of years. I don't know if that's statutory allowed. I don't believe it is. So it's got to get its money from somewhere. And so it probably should be, if you want to fund the CDA, you should levy for it in a city fund and then transfer it over through the budget process to help it versus directly levying in the CDA. Okay. And then the last one that's new there is the minutes. Again, because of turnover, just kind of fell through the cracks. We're not posted for many months. They were caught up through the end of 2023, right before we released our report, which is a great step. And I know you're working on catching up on those for 2024. So again, this is a comment that will probably go away next year too. The rest of these, I won't run through them. They were in here last year. There really weren't changes to them as far as these items go. The last one I'm going to mention though is page 10 and 11, where it discusses the TAG's financial position. There's a long history here. You can see how long this comment has been in here, going back to the 2009 financial recovery plan when there was a pretty substantial deficit for TAG. It really improved over the next 10, 12 years, where it was almost zero, but it's gone backwards again for the last couple of years, again, because probably lack of oversight and kind of watching what's going on in there and such. So just to provide you an update of where it's at versus trying to dig through all the financials.
Good question. This charge accounts.
Yep.
Does anybody have the answer how many charge accounts we have? Are there several or just a few?
Well, then every department has their own charge account.
Okay. Do we have a limit on that?
I don't know.
The dollar limit?
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
And those charge accounts are not uncommon. Certainly by no means are we recommending against them. It's
As long as
just,
the bills are
they have a
being paid
policy.
within 30 days.
yeah, well, that too. But they have a policy, and so that there's guidance and consistency and controls.
Okay.
Is really what we're recommending.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we originally funded the CDA with the residue from a retiring TIF. And so we had levies after that, yeah, you say?
That's correct. Yep. TIF 3, when that closed, really, the CDA was created in conjunction with TIF 3,
Right,
and TIF 3 was very successful.
right.
Closed a year early, as I recall. But it's continued with economic development initiatives and such, which.
And we never replaced the funding source.
Yep, and it's got to get the money from somewhere. It's just changing the way it flows through the city, really.
And the last question, if you remember from 2009, you were here and I was here, we did the 9-year plan, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
I can't believe it got this far out of hand. We're almost halfway back to where it was before. It's very disappointing.
Well, the city has made some great efforts to recover from that, and, like you, being around for a while,
Right.
it will again. So,
Yeah. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, John, I just got one question, a couple of questions, I guess. So I keep getting asked this question continuously about the $700,000 that was missing. Is it true? And B, where did they come up with that number from?
I'm not aware of any missing funds. I have heard that, concern over the last year and a half, really. And that goes back to the audit. And that was really the result of cash being off because of the county records being such a mess. There were payments not posted, there were bond proceeds not posted. Everything fell about a year behind in terms of bank recs. And so that number was a number that we were trying to correct through a lot of journal entries during the 2022 audit. So that's where that came from. But we're not auditing, looking for fraud. It's not a forensic audit or anything like that, but we didn't see that picture going on.
So you would characterize it as money that was not accounted for rather than missing?
I would say no to both of those. I would say it was messy accounting records.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
That's all we saw. There was 50-some entries on our side, and the utility had even more. I generally say keep around 10. That's pretty good. So to have that many, it was really very tough.
Okay. Well, thank you for your
This year
time.
went a lot better.
Well, good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Item number 5, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to consent the agenda.
For a second. Motion by Olson. For a second. Second. Second by Levenow. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, report of officers. Mayor's report. All right. Sorry, I got a little bit of cold going on here, but I want to start off this month by thanking all the organizations who made the Mayville Rock and Boom Festival a remarkable success. Many long hours of planning to went into this year's events along with hard work and dedication. Thank you to all the volunteers, Mayville Rotary, Mayville Chamber, Mayville Lions, Main Street Mayville, Mayville Park Department, Mayville EMS, Fire, and Police. Would also like to thank all the great sponsors who contributed to keeping this community event a great tradition. Many sponsors, the main sponsors was Metalcraft, Affiliated Products, Michaels, Ted and Grace Bachber Foundation, Mayville, BP, and many other great businesses. Thank you all on behalf of the City of Mayville. Job well done. After 22 months, Mayville has a fully staffed city council, city hall, office staff, and all city commissions, boards, and committees. I was asked in the first 90 to 120 days what I wanted to accomplish, and this was the top of my priority list. This gives the city the capability to have staff learn their job over the next several months, and as we prepare for the 2025 budget. I want to welcome some of the newest staff members, Anastasia Godstead, Dawn Hunt, and Gwen Owen. The next 90 to 120 days, I plan to go back to a functioning budget process and have the final budget approval by the city council at the November meeting. Mabel has a long standing of emergency tornado sirens. Mabel currently has 8 sirens in use with 2 not functioning as of today. The repairs of these sirens will cost around $40,000, and to replace them with a new advanced siren system will cost about $115,000. The city council approved the purchase of the new system as we are in the process of producing a financial plan to pay for the new system. Mabel residents should also plan accordingly with their own emergency system, whether Dodge County Emergency System Alert through their phone, emergency scanners, or emergency alert systems. More to come. This past month, I attended another downtown business that received a WDC grant for improving their business. Link Academy in Mabel was the recipient of this award, along with the Mabel Facade Grant matching funds. Dan Link and his family have been doing business in Mabel for over 30 years, and we are proud to have them part of the community. The building on Main Street was built in 1848, making this site one of the oldest in Mabel. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for supporting our community. Mabel City Council approved creating another tax incentive district in the North Industrial Park. This will be TID number 7 and will give the city additional resources to extend water, storm water, and complete the road paving on the gravel road leading to the Slag Road. We anticipate the entire road project will be complete in 2025. That's the end of my report. Administrator's report.
Good evening. Just giving an update on the administrative functions of the city. Thank you for adopting the ordinance for moving the polling location at our last meeting. Immediately I started filing the ADA accessibility with Wisconsin Elections Commission. That got updated the polling location on My Votes, that when you go in and request an absentee ballot on My Vote now, they'll come up through the Ted and Grace Bachhuber library. Put a note on the water bills, and I apologize to the Bachhubers that the Bachhubers was spelled incorrectly on the water bills. We'll be putting that note out again on the next water bills and making sure that we have the name spelled correctly. Added a message to the website. Anastasia is going to continue with promoting moving the polling location through Facebook and continue notifying the residents in her changes in polling locations. I want to help thank Anastasia for coming in on the week of June 25th and making sure that I could get the absentee ballots out for the city by that June 26th deadline. So, and Anastasia started on July 1st, and we'll continue this election process. Some of the meetings that I attended were the Park Rec Tag Center on June 10th, Library Board meeting on June 11th, Plan Commission was canceled along with the CDA meeting, and Wastewater Committee I attended on July 2nd. Some of the projects that we have in process, I went ahead and signed the proposal from Stan Jones, and the old library will be in the online bidding process starting July 10th of this week and will end on Wednesday, August 14th at 2 p.m. So if you want to check that out on his website for the online bidding of the old library. Also attended the pre-construction meeting for the Breckenridge road project. And on July 2nd, the road project will start the week of July 15th. Traffic will be 1 lane during that week, but should be passable. As the mayor mentioned, Gwen Owen from the utility accountant, she started on June 17th, Anastasia on July 1st, and then Richard Sexton started for the DPW crew person. He started on July 1st also, and that filled the hole that was created by Jacob Schulferver being promoted into the Parks Director. Library is in the process of interviewing for a part-time housekeeper and also part-time maintenance manager. And upcoming task for me is completing insurance proposals. I'm meeting with EMC or Robertson and Ryan this week, and then the league is in the process of getting the proposal to me. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. City Clerk's report.
As it's been discussed, I started last week on July 1st. This first week has largely been trying to go through where things were left off, where I need to pick up. Hitting the ground running for August's partisan primary. I'm very excited that we do have the new polling location at the Ted and Grace Bach-Huber Memorial Library. This should be much more handicap accessible. It's been a big push by Wisconsin Elections Commission to ensure that your polling locations are far more accessible, so I think it'll help us with compliance in that capacity. Other than that, some upcoming election dates. July 16th is the last day for residents to register to vote online or by mail. After that, they have to register in the clerk's office or at the polling place on election day. We will have our residential care facility voting take place on Monday, July 22nd, and the second day of July 23rd if it's needed. In-person absentee voting begins on July 30th. Public test will take place on Tuesday, August 6th at 10 a.m. At the library. And the partisan primary itself is Tuesday, August 13th. And other than that, next week, the week of July 15th, I will be in Clerks and Treasurers Institute. It's my second year. So I will physically be here in the building, but behind closed doors while I'm in those classes. So that's my update.
Carrie, treasury report.
Well, as you know, in June, we welcomed 2 new staff members and 1 returning. So I've been getting the 2 new staff members up to speed on the day-to-day operations so that we can get back up and running. My viewpoint parameters for department heads is all set up and ready for viewing. My viewpoint allows the department heads to see real-time reporting on their accounts. Casel's user permissions have been audited and adjusted accordingly. We received our workman's compensation report for 2023. I filed the maintenance of EPA report for EMS and fire. The annual PE 300 TID reports have been submitted. Payroll has been updated to Fridays per policy. I'm working on reviewing various payroll procedures. We have accounts payables that are being processed every 2 weeks so that bills are processed in a timely manner. On July 17th, I'll be taking GASB 100 and GASB 101 courses provided free of charge by Baker Tilly. Along with this, Cameron has been providing some additional professional courses for my development. You'll see I provided you with a 2025 budget timeline. On there's an additional edit for mayor's request to have the department heads meet with the mayor and Ken Newman to discuss their preliminary budget on August 15th. I requested department heads have their capital improvement worksheet completed by July 10th. Once that is handed in, I will provide them with the operating budget worksheet. And then in your packet, you'll see budget to actual reports as of May 2024. And a few highlights on those. See that? We will receive the property tax levy in August. For property taxes, we will receive the final settlement in August and recognize the full value of property taxes at that time. Payment taxes will be completed as soon as the city finalizes the mill rate for the 2024 taxes payable in 2025. And it's anticipated that we're going to be receiving more than the $175,000 that is budgeted for. For the spending restraint, we will have 15% of it will come in July and 85% of it in November. In May, we will receive fire 2% dues. License and permits seem to be on target. Ambulance fees are looking in line with budget. During the creation of the budget, the hiring date of the administrator is unknown. So along with that, there were other staffing vacancies. So currently, the admin and comptroller category are tracking in line when we combine them. And during the budget process as well, budgeting for the interest income was recommended to budget conservatively, So as of right now, we actually anticipate $105,000 over in the investment rate, if the investment rates remain. Police department expenditures are on track with their budget. Ambulance and fire as well. Streets and roads is typically lower until summertime comes where there are expenditures at that time, just like you'll see with the snow and ice and their expenditures. They're higher in January, February, and then in December. Currently, the library is tracking under budget. We're hoping to see this trend continue throughout the end of the year. And Cameron will be discussing the capital, ARPA, and debt service budget actual.
All right.
Unless anyone has any questions, Brian.
Yeah, let's just wrap up the general fund just a little bit. Thank you, Nicole, for going over the general fund budget to actual. I think a lot of this stuff is good news. Going in the 2024 budget cycle, I think a lot of people understood how frustrating at times it may have been to get to the finish line. So I just want to touch on Nicole's comment about the comptroller budget and the city general admin budget. The city admin budget houses both the administrator and the clerk. Now, as Nicole mentioned, the exact hiring date of both of those positions were unknown. So we were constantly playing a balance between the comptroller budget and the city general budget to make sure that we weren't bust on both of those lines together. So that required a little bit of additional assistance from me, a little bit of overtime through the months of January through March, which generated that city or the comptroller budget to look a little bit higher, around 78% currently of budget. But again, the city admin budget is around 22%. Kind of as Nicole mentioned with the library, that's tracking currently very well if you're comparing it to what was budgeted. But again, a library that scale runs at a much higher operating costs. So the city and the library should work together to try to minimize the impact on that budget. Again, the goal is not to spend every dollar of your budget. A couple things, as John had mentioned, kind of in 2022, one of the things that the city didn't do was appropriately journal the debt activity, again, and do the budget amendments. Last night, Nicole and I worked on getting that activity in the general ledger. So on May 30th, you guys issued roughly $2.1 million of general obligation debt, about 1.9 of GO debt in the capital fund. So that activity is appropriately recorded. At the July 22nd meeting, I will propose a budget amendment to appropriately get these funds, and then subsequently on the August 5th meeting, approved at the council, or August 12th meeting at the city council meeting. It is important to note, a couple of capital expenses have been purchased this year. The first one was the $137,000 front loader. Through discussing with Stephanie today, there's roughly a $13,000 purchase to finish that asset. Through our discussions, I had mentioned that there was roughly $8,000 available in Fund 45 or the Capital Project Fund, but Jack will have to work for that other $3,000 to fit it in the general fund. And how I got to that number, and I apologize for jumping ahead. So when you approved the pre-sale report, or some of you approved that report a couple months ago, Allers presented different project costs for the different buckets. So the front loader was actually budgeted for in the debt document for $145,000 because we did know that project came. Similarly, the fire truck on your Fund 45 is $1.3 million in this budget, but actually $1,460,000. So again, those budget amendments are going to go to Finance Committee on the 22nd, and then hopefully brought to the meeting on August 12th for approval. Currently, I'm going to just touch base with Police Chief. You already bought your 2024 squad. There is another purchase that's required for the final of the upfitting. Between the proceeds of the sale of a car and the remaining funds available in Fund 74, it's anticipated for the funds to be completely available for that purchase. And that's all I have on those funds. Any questions on the general fund or the capital improvement fund? Where's all the other funds? So I just want to make sure, I'll let this board know, our council know that with Nicole being new to her position, we're starting with the most important funds first. So really getting a mastery of the general fund, understanding the ins and outs, then going to our debt service and capital fund. I anticipate at the next board meeting, Nicole will be ready to talk about the tag center. And will eventually expand until you have all of your budget to actuals for your funds. But taking baby steps here, make sure that we got mastery of everything.
Any questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Cameron.
All right, item 7, report of committees, commissions, and boards. Wastewater Commission's next meeting date is August 6th at 6 p.m. Library Board, next meeting date is August 8th at 6 p.m.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
the next library meeting date is actually this Thursday at 6 p.m. That's July 11th.
July 11th.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Want to make sure we know what that's in. All right, Public Works Committee, next meeting is July 22nd at 6 p.m. Personnel Committee, next meeting date is July 22nd at 6 p.m. Public Safety Committee is July 22nd at 6 p.m. Finance Committee is July 22nd at 6 p.m. Park Rec Day Center Commission, next date and time is July 10th at 1 p.m. Planning Commission, next date and time is July 24th at 4 p.m. Community Development Authority, next meeting date is July 24th at 5 p.m. Whole business, ordinance adoption 1138-2024, an ordinance to amend City Code Section 182-2, purchase and possession of by minors. And this was introduced last meeting, so we were back to prove it or not.
The way it was explained to me.
Let's just bring the chief up, he can explain it for.
It's actually a state thing, right?
No,
It is a city thing?
it's a city thing, it's a city ordinance, and we're just falling in line with new vape pens and the colors that go in vape pens and that you can purchase that can contain THC. And our current ordinance was an old ordinance that didn't spell it out specifically. So if we were to stop a kid or somebody that was underage with, or I guess anybody with THC in it or nicotine in it, it wouldn't be in line with our ordinance. So it was just a change just for that. So
I take it this was reviewed by our attorney, city attorney?
yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion by Levin, second by Olson. Any discussion?
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Excuse me. Opposed, motion carried. Ordinance adopt 1139-2024, an ordinance to amend City Code Section 182-3, sale to minors. That's similar, right?
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Is there a motion?
I make that motion.
Motion by Olson,
Second.
second by Schmidt. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried. New business, approve the minutes of June 10th, 2024, common council meeting, and June 26th, 2024, special common council meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Smith,
Second.
second by Newman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, approve resolution 5928-2024, mayor appointments of the standing committee. You guys did review the standing committee assignments?
I did.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Olson,
I'll second that.
second by DeBaker. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Approve resolution 5929-2024, appointing election officers for the 2024-2025 term. It's been in your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Smith,
Second.
second by Levino. Any discussion? I'd just like to thank all the poll workers for giving their time for elections. There's a lot of work that goes into it, so appreciate it. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss with possible action repairing, replacing, or removal tornado sirens. And this was approved through committee. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion to
Motion by Smith. Is
approve
there
the expense.
a second?
Second.
Second by Schmidt. All right, any discussion? I think that, I'm gonna let Stephanie say a few words about how we're gonna fund it.
So I talked with the Chief Tellner, and we are looking to just do one of the sirens out that isn't working in the Gulf View, replacing that one immediately. As soon as we can get it, we'll order it. And then going ahead with the rest of the project with the understanding it's probably gonna take 2 months with the equipment. And that way we'll complete the project, and then we would budget for it in the 2025 budget. And then everything should be covered at that time. We might have to purchase, the one siren this time, but that would be the new equipment, and then we can just go ahead with the project and we'll be credited for that one siren.
I got a question though, maybe Ryan too, would want to listen. I just want to make sure for the costs that we're investing in this, which I think it's for safety first, it's wonderful. The price is scary, but I just want to make sure that this is something that is going to last 20 to 25 years and not nickel and dime us to death like in the past years.
I can't answer, I mean, it's mechanical devices and there's gonna be yearly maintenance, so.
I mean,
And we're replacing 3 of them with new ones and we're updating old one, we're updating some old ones as well. So I still plan on keeping the maintenance contract that we currently have.
which was like $4,000 some odd dollars.
40, 500 a
Yeah.
year. And that'll actually go down, it'll go down to under 4 because it's roughly $400 a station. And they go in and like clean connectors and they go all the way up to the top and do maintenance and fix things. They do it yearly. And I still think that's necessary, even if we have a brand new system today, I still think that we need to make sure that they're maintained every year. Because all of these systems have backup batteries in place and all of those require to be looked at least once a year. And that will continue regardless if the system's brand new or like it is currently or the old, so.
My worry is that 5, 10 years down the road, it's, we need something upgraded and spend the money, some more money. I want to make sure that this is it now.
I think the proper way to do it, and I've been looking at our capital improvements budget is to plan on replacing a certain, sirens every 5 years, a few of the sirens or updating every 5 years of capital improvements. And that's something that hasn't been done previously. So I think we need to go on some kind of a plan where, so that, 15, 20 years from now, we're not replacing them all at once again, that we're constantly maintaining them. I think that's the responsible way to do it.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
So we're approving up to $115,000 for the new siren system. Is that your understanding?
It was 114 something.
Yeah, up to 150.
Okay.
We're staggering how the expenditures come out of it. So that some comes out initially and the other is,
Well, we're still working on that with the company. They
Right.
said we might be able to just pay for it all this year, and then we'll just budget for it and pay for it.
but the initial part, we're gonna pay for the one in Gulfview right away though.
Well, I think that was part of, Chief, you want to speak to that? I thought it was part of the,
We spoke with the company today. We still don't have a date on when the equipment's gonna be available. It could be up to 2 months out. He's working on that currently. He's gonna see if he can't pull a favor and try to get at least the peripherals that we need for the one system that's not functioning as soon as we can, and then order the rest of the stuff, later. But that's still up there. We talked to him on the phone today, so we're still not quite sure, but he's working on it.
but we're on the list to get this replaced this fall.
We are on the list. After I spoke with the mayor, after the last meeting, I did tell him that we were gonna proceed with this, but, and to get the stuff added and ordered. But exactly when all that's gonna be available is, I don't have an exact date yet.
Okay.
But we are working on it actively, so.
Okay. Anybody else got any discussion? All right, take the roll, please.
Alderman Smith,
All right,
Alderman Schmidt,
All right.
Alderman DeBaker.
Aye.
Alderman Leibnow.
Aye.
Alderman Newman.
Nay.
Alderperson Olson.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-1. All right, discuss with possible action on resolution 5927-2024, appointments of administrator and depository signers. So this is adding Stephanie to our accounts. Is there a motion?
I'll
I'll
make
make
a
that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Olson, second by Smith. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, approve operator's license as follows. You see the list there, and these been approved by the chief. Right?
All good, yes.
Is there a motion to approve operator's license? So. Motion by Schmidt,
Second.
second by DeBaker. Any discussion? All those in favor of the operator's license, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
That's Mike's.
Motion by Newman, second by Schmidt. All those in favor of adjournment at 54?
54.
54, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I gave that to Mike.